Hi, welcome back to Real Life Revenge. Ma'am, do you know your badge has been deactivated? The security guard at the front desk said it like he was announcing the weather. Bland, apologetic, not his circus. Margaret blinked once, then again. The turnstile hadn't clicked. Her little green light didn't flash. She was standing there, reusable coffee mug in one hand, a Ziploc bag of homemade banana bread in the other, while the Monday morning parade of suits flowed around her like she was a lamppost, gave a dry smile. Well, I guess that depends on whether Midway Systems has a death wish this week. The guard didn't laugh. She didn't expect him to. It wasn't the first time she'd been invisible. In 9 years, Margaret had written contracts that kept Midway's lights on, structured licensing deals that protected 8-figure patents, and buried enough firewalls into joint ownership.
Clauses that their most valuable IP asset, Project Sable, was basically Fort Knox in PDF form. And yet to everyone above the fourth floor, she was just legal ops, an email signature. A name on red lines, someone you CC'd at the end of the deal if you remembered. She'd come from a county originally, fought tooth and nail to claw her way out of that beige graveyard of spreadsheets and into something with teeth. Licensing was where the real power lived, where details weren't just bullet points, they were weapons. Margaret understood that better than anyone. She wasn't flashy, didn't talk about vision or synergy or any of the other buzzwords the sales guys threw around like cologne. What she did was read. All of it. Every contract, every footnote, every revision. While Carter Lane, Midway's new VP of Strategic Operations, was strutting around talking about liquidity events and reclaiming agile dominance, Margaret was tucked in the legal subfolders of their biggest clients, cloud storage, highlighting claw language Carter would have needed a flashlight and a law degree to understand. Project Sable was her crown jewel, a tangled spiderweb of patent rights, shared development notes, usage triggers, and royalty escalators tied to performance metrics only she and the outside counsel had fully mapped. At its peak, it brought in $12 million a quarter. Margaret didn't just help negotiate it. She built the compliance framework from scratch, drafted the assignment writer herself. The one no one ever bothered to read, the one that quietly made her the sole assignee of any transfer of Sable's core assets. Not legal, not Midway her. She never flaunted it. That wasn't the point. The point was protection of the work, the company, the long game. Seen too many licensing disasters collapse under hasty M&As and clueless VPs trying to show off with asset dumps. The clause was her insurance policy, a seatbelt no one thought they needed until the crash. But things had started changing fast when Carter arrived. First came the vision decks, then the consultants. Suddenly, every hallway was filled with words like sunset, synergize, and lean optimization. Entire departments disappeared. Man fired the facilities team and started outsourcing janitorial to an app. An app! Then he came for licensing. Margaret had kept her head down at first, watching Carter surgically slice the org chart. He spoke at town halls like he was on Shark Tank, talking about asset repositioning and shareholder momentum. People clapped. Margaret sat stone-faced. She knew what he was eyeing, knew the spreadsheet he'd waved around last week with a fat red arrow pointing at legacy IP Sable. She knew what he was planning before he did. That Monday morning, standing outside the turnstile, badge dead and banana bread sweating in her purse, she finally saw it all for what it was. He hadn't just missed the clause. He had no idea she was the clause. Carter Lane walked into Midway like a man who just fired God and planned to run the universe with a whiteboard and a Bluetooth headset. He was tan in that try-hard California way, like he'd been marinated in LinkedIn filters and protein powder. His shoes looked too expensive to walk in, his handshake lasted half a second too long, and his first sentence in the all-hands meeting was, "I didn't come here to make friends, I came to modernize." Someone actually whooped. Margaret reached for her Tylenol. Carter was the new VP of Strategic Operations, which, near as anyone could tell, meant high-functioning chaos monkey with PowerPoint privileges.
He'd come in on a wave of boardroom desperation, hired straight off some VC firm that sold pet tracking NFTs or whatever garbage Silicon Valley was huffing that quarter. His resume was long on exits and short on context. The man could sell a bicycle to a fish. He couldn't read a contract to save his life. He strutted through departments with a little leather-bound moleskin and a smile like a blunt instrument. Everywhere he went, heads rolled. Accounting became a skeleton crew in 2 weeks. HR got merged with people optimization.
Facilities outsourced to a firm called Mopley. Legal Margaret's division got rebranded as Process Risk. But the worst was what he called the asset cleanse. Printed spreadsheets like he was staging a coup. Assets, portfolios, patents, licenses, each labeled with traffic light colors. Sable, the most lucrative and labyrinthian piece of Midway's intellectual property, was marked bright red. Legacy bloat, Carter called it, operational anchor. Fat ripe for trimming. Margaret asked for meeting, got 50 minutes in a glass-walled conference room next to the espresso bar he'd installed, showed up with a folder of Sable documentation, printed, tabbed, labeled. Carter didn't even open it. "This isn't the nines," he said, smirking. "We don't need binder queens. We need velocity." "I built the compliance shell for Sable," she replied, voice clipped. "There's an assignment clause, 14.2C. It was part of the dual joint restructuring when the Korea deal collapsed. You can't touch those assets without—" Margaret didn't raise his voice, just held up a palm like a preacher calming a sheep. "You're obviously passionate, but this thing's bleeding overhead. The boards aligned. We're moving the portfolio to Crescent Ridge Capital. 80 million, all cash. It's a no-brainer." She stared at him like he'd just offered to auction off his kidneys on eBay. He smiled wider. "Go enjoy your early retirement. Or maybe freelance. I hear a lot of you back-office types are doing great on Upwork." Margaret stood slowly. He didn't yell, didn't argue, just tapped the folder once. "You might want to read what you're about to sell." And she walked out. That night, at her kitchen table, she opened her personal laptop and pulled up the clause from memory. Paragraph 14.2C, 2C of the Sable licensing agreement. All rights, transfers, sublicensing, divestitures, or changes to controlling interest of the Sable core asset shall be subject to signatory assignment by the designated custodial assignee. Her name on the line, assigned by Midway's then general counsel and countersigned by their overseas partner, Ironclad. Quiet, easily missed by anyone reading fast. The next morning, she typed a one-sentence email to the internal legal team. Subject: Urgent Sable Assignment Writer. Body: Refer to clause 14.2C before executing any sale or LOI. Sable Asset Portfolio. She BCC'd herself. Hit send. No reply. She wasn't surprised. The next day, her calendar vanished, her access to the shared drive was revoked, HR blocked her from Slack. A courier delivered a padded envelope with exit documents and a coupon for a career coaching webinar. Margaret didn't cry. She went outside, trimmed her hydrangeas, drank a Diet Coke, and watched the boardroom smoke machine rev up for its next quarterly illusion. They just put a price tag on a bomb they didn't know was live, and she was the one holding the trigger. The HR girl couldn't have been more than 25, still wearing her intern enthusiasm like it hadn't curdled yet. She handed Margaret a cardboard box with one of those tight-lipped smiles that said, "I hate this. Not enough to stop it." "We've prepared your severance documents," she chirped as if she were offering a cookie. "There's a 2-week consultancy clause just in case we need transition support. It's standard." Margaret took the box without blinking. Her mug, her stapler, a ceramic cactus, and a photo of her and her dog that no one ever noticed in the first place. No one asked her what needed to be handed off. No questions about the status of the contract audits, open IP disputes, or the foreign compliance review she'd been running solo since 2019. Carter had made it clear he didn't need context, just clean exits. Margaret was obsolete, an appendix. Her badge deactivated with a quiet beep. Her Outlook account vanished while she was still in the elevator.
She walked out of Midway Systems with nothing but a box of things and a claw in her back pocket that would soon detonate. It was early March. Air still had that gray Cincinnati wetness, like winter refusing to die. She got in her Corolla, drove home in silence, and set the box on her kitchen table. The ceramic cactus tipped sideways. She didn't bother to fix it. Over the next few days, her phone didn't ring. Not from legal, not from IT, not even from Diane in procurement, who used to call whenever she couldn't find the latest writer template. She did get was a LinkedIn update from Carter. Thrilled to be leading Midway's next evolution, streamlined, strategic, scalable. Attached was a photo of him at some executive summit, flanked by two guys in vests with teeth too white to be trustworthy. The caption, "Legacy is dead. Velocity is king." She closed the app and opened her Sable archive. The sale was moving fast. Crescent Ridge Capital had issued a letter of intent. Frendel had mentioned it in a side text before ghosting. Margaret watched the news drip out in vague press language. Significant IP restructuring, portfolio repositioning, asset class optimization, all the euphemisms that meant the same thing. Carter was burning the house for insurance money. The number floated up like a greasy balloon. $80 million. 80 for a portfolio that still had pending patents, open usage triggers, a licensing clause so specific it had a contingency section for submarine jurisdictions. Carter didn't know or didn't care. Margaret kept a legal pad on her kitchen table and jotted every milestone in pencil. March 10, LOI signed. March 14, press release draft leaks. March 18, internal town hall scheduled. The March 10 entry had an asterisk. Clause 14.2c remains unacknowledged. Carter, meanwhile, was glowing. Around town was that he was being floated for a board seat at a new biotech startup. Midway stock had ticked up a few percentage points on news of the Sable sale. He strutted across podcasts and panels like a man who thought gravity had been repealed in his honor.